Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ainhoa Montoya, and on behalf of the Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies, I'd like to welcome you to our Marie Curie Postdoctoral Fellowship workshop. This is a training event for researchers interested in applying for this scheme, which was previously known as the Marie Curie Individual Fellowships. We have conceived the session as an opportunity to offer an overview of the scheme, general tips, and a space for questions on what is one of the most attractive European funding opportunities for postdoctoral researchers. We are going to first hear from members of the University of London's Research Office, who will offer an overview of the scheme. So they're going to be covering procedures, the elaboration of the proposal, and the support available at the School of Advanced Study if you wish to be hosted by us. We will then hear from a successful applicant who will offer an overview of the application and general tips to help prepare a competitive application. And she will be focusing specifically on aspects that are relevant to Latin Americanists and Caribbeanists, but most of what she will cover should be useful to researchers in general. And we will end with some time for Q&A. So before I go on with the introduction to this workshop, I'd like to tell you a little bit about us in case you were interested in submitting an application with us. The Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies is based at the Institute of Modern Languages Research, which is one of the 8 institutes at the School of Advanced Study, University of London. The center has the mission of promoting and facilitating research in the field of Latin American and Caribbean studies, and does so in a number of ways, including doctoral study and early career training, hosting a program of academic and public-facing events, conducting its own program of research, fostering and supporting academic networks, promoting open access to cutting-edge research through its book series with the University of London Press. And in addition to that, the center hosts the prestigious Journal of Latin American Studies, which is published by Cambridge University Press. And scholars based at the center have access to the Senate House Library's unique collection in Latin American and Caribbean Studies, which is one of the world's largest. We also have a long experience of hosting and supporting postdoctoral scholars funded by different schemes. And we welcome expressions of interest from researchers wishing to consider to apply for a Marie Curie Fellowship with us. So we are going to post the procedure to submit your expression of interest with us in the chat. But as I mentioned, it will also be covered by one of the speakers. And we welcome you to browse the center's website and check our Researchers tab webpage to assess if we would be a good fit for your research. So in terms of practicalities for the workshop, you will see that we are recording the workshop, but we will edit out the Q&A and we will only make publicly available on the center's website the recording of the presentations. You have all been muted during the presentations to avoid any disruption, but you will be able to mute yourself and ask questions during the Q&A. We would encourage you to use the chat to post any questions during or after the presentation, and we will try to pick up as many as we can. And as I said, you can also use the raise hand function, and I'll ask you to unmute yourself when it is your turn. But we also like to apologize in advance if we cannot address all of your questions, but we also aim to draw up a frequently asked questions document with those that are left unanswered. So hopefully that will be helpful and we'll answer your queries if they aren't answered at this event. So I think this is all from me in terms of practicalities and event format. So I'm going to introduce our first 2 speakers. We are first going to be hearing from Sandrine Alarçon-Symonds, who is Head of Management Information and Research Services at the University of London, and is going to offer an overview of the application process. We will then hear from Jaimie Henderson, who is Research Support Officer at the University of London, and who will explain the procedure for submitting your expressions of interest to apply with us. So over to you, Sandrine.
Thank you, Ainhoa, and welcome everyone, and thanks for coming to this event. I will try to share my screen and to share the PowerPoint that both Jaimie and I will be using today. Just bear with me just to make sure that I've got the right thing. Ainhoa, can you tell me if it's all okay? Yeah, okay, thank you very much. So as Ainhoa said, I'm the Head of Management Information and Research Services at the University of London. I shall be presenting a quick overview of the MSCA postdoctoral scheme as part of the European Horizon European Programme, and its advantages, its changes since Horizon 2020, and how we can support applicants with their proposal while covering our internal processes. And I'll be assisted with Jaimie today. The new Horizon Europe programme has made several changes on the MSCA actions. Some more are more subtle than others, notwithstanding the change of name from the previous known MSCA individual fellowships to the now MSCA postdoctoral fellowships. The MSCA actions remain part of the excellence science pillar of the Horizon Europe programme, which focus on supporting excellence, research excellence, that is to say, research projects in particular. The UK has signed a withdrawal agreement with the EU bloc that allows its research institution to take part in Horizon programme, and therefore allows us to host MSCA postdoctoral fellows, and we're very pleased about that. So why do you want to get involved in these postdoctoral fellowships? Well, from the research point of view, this is what we call a bottom-up research, where you are giving resources and opportunities to actually undertake your own project. It is not something that is led by particular funders' agendas. It's all about your research. It's also about supporting your career enhancements in all aspects of what research should be about, which is interdisciplinary as well as disciplinary work, networking, increase employability. And in terms of the finances, well, it's very interesting for anyone who does secure a postdoctoral fellowship. In terms of monetary way, but it allows people to have mobility in the way that they can travel the world and have accessibility to things that they may not have accessibility in their country. From our point of view, it allows our mission. It allows to further our mission, support interdisciplinary and disciplinary research. In many different ways. It allows us to be the broker between research and public community, promoting knowledge exchange and public engagement. And more supportedly, it gives us a platform to excellent research projects and be part of it. So the awards provide an international platform for us, which in turn helps us support our mission. The key features of the scheme include, as I mentioned before, the foster excellence through implementation of a research project, provides opportunities for researchers to acquire and transfer new knowledge, provide opportunities to work on research and innovation in Europe, and support the return and reintegration of researchers from outside Europe to promote career starts and individual researchers. It also bridge and encourage exposure to the non-academic sector and support researchers displaced conflict outside the EU and Horizon 2020 associated countries. We support both types of fellowships. So the MSCA postdoctoral fellowships has two types, the European fellowships and a global fellowships. And the University of London supports both and would accept expression of interest for both schemes. Just to highlight that the scheme will expect the researchers to work 100% of their time on the project. You may opt to work part-time in order to pursue particular additional activities for personal reasons, but this will require specific approval from the REA. Further key features on the scheme is the fact that when you're applying through the host institution, which is called the mono-beneficiary single entry with the researcher. So you will start an application which will be linked to us and can only be approved by us for you to be hosted here. There are some particular criteria for you to be able to be eligible to apply to that call. There is applicant can be of any nationalities, which is great, but we would highlight the mobility rules for which you need to make sure that you are compliant with and be in possession with a PhD degree and have some element of research background with you. Researchers, for example, must not have resided or carried out their many activities in the countries of the beneficiary. The beneficiary is us, so that means the UK, and that means the UK before the call deadline. The fellowship allows secondment, and that's only optional, and it happens at the end of the fellowship. If you apply but you're not successful and you have reached a certain percentage, you will be given what's called a seal of excellence, and it's a quality label awarded to project proposals which are judged to deserve funding but unfortunately could not get them. This is actually quite important for applicants who's put a lot of work behind the application and unfortunately couldn't get funding. This scheme is quite competitive, so there are people who unfortunately cannot be funded. But the Seal of Excellence allows some countries to run some particular funding streams just for people who have received Seal of Excellence. The UK is not part of the schemes, but that doesn't mean that any applicants who have received that quality label cannot apply to those schemes. Now, the last thing is that I would say, which is new for the postdoctoral fellowships and didn't apply in the previous iteration, is the fact that the REA is now restricting resubmission. So anyone who has secured a score that is less than 70% will not be able to reapply in the year after. That's something to bear in mind. I mentioned very briefly eligibility. Eligibility is something that we ask all applicants to be responsible for. The guidance is clear to some respect, but we can understand that sometimes it doesn't cover all circumstances. We do not have authority to say that someone is eligible or not. Only the funder does. So what we would ask is for people to make sure that they read the guidance. We can try to answer some questions, but we cannot be the authority to say, yes, you're definitely eligible if there is any doubt in the eligibility. And there are what's called national point of contact for the action, and we would recommend anyone who does have any questions and queries and they're not really sure to actually contact them and have something in writing. The one thing that the funder will do is if there are any questions, they may ask more documentation. So you just make sure that you have enough paperwork and appropriate paperwork to be able to provide evidence of your eligibility. The one thing I want to mention is Brexit did happen, and but that has not stopped us, thankfully, to be part of Horizon Europe. So as far as we're concerned, it's business as usual. As I mentioned, we are accepting application for both the European fellowships and the global fellowships. And one thing that we were told is the fact that the UK organizations are not evaluated differently by the European Commission, and I have seen it, and I can attest to that. which is also great. So just to confirm that. But there are some sources in the slides if you are interested in looking at how this has all come about, and the reassurances that coming to a UK institution is the thing to do. We have been quite successful at securing and hosting fellowships, so we would encourage everyone to think about the UK to come and do their research with us. I shall now pass on to my research support officer, Jaimie Henderson, who's going to talk to you about the school internal processes.
Hi everyone. Sandrine's going to continue to wrangle the slides for me, so I might just give you a nod when I get to the end of each page. Hi everyone, I'm Jaimie. I'm the Research Support Officer at the School of Advanced Study, and I work alongside Sandrine and coordinate the application process for the Marie Curie Postdoctoral Fellowships. Before being accepted by this school, we ask all applicants to provide an expression of interest, which I'll talk about more in a moment. This is the link, I believe, on this page for the information about that expression of interest. I just want to back up something that Sandrine said about eligibility as well. It's important for us to underline that it's your eligibility for this scheme, and it's your responsibility to make sure that you are eligible. The application's a lot of work, and we need to make sure that we don't all start working on that, you as well as us, before realizing that you're not technically eligible for it. So we're here to help point you in the direction of those who can provide the answers about your eligibility, but we can't answer whether or not you're eligible. As Sandrine said, there's the guidance documents, which you should be very familiar with anyway, and the national contact points, which we'll provide more information about. They're on the scheme webpage, has links to the national contact points, but we can circulate all that information. So the expression of interest. These are the documents that you need to provide us with in order to apply for the scheme through the School of Advanced Study. So this is how we decide whether we're going to work together with you, and whether you can decide whether we're the right place for you. You need to contact the director of your chosen institute and CC our email address. We'll send more information about this when you do so, with a 1 or 2 page CV, a 100-word abstract, and a 1 or 2 page outline of your research proposal, and include your intended publication outputs in that. It's also, we need you to identify your potential mentor. If that's not the director, I mean, it's really helpful to me if you say if that is the director as well. So if you just let us know the name of the person you're thinking about working with. Regarding the mentor, it's very important that you're applying to institutes at SAS, because there are staff members there who align with your research interests and would be the best placed people to mentor you. So make sure you're familiar with the research background of the person you're proposing, and you can find information about our staff through the institute web pages and the Directory of Research and Expertise. Again, we can send you links to that. If the fit isn't quite right, or your proposed mentor isn't available, then the director may suggest someone else who would be a good fit, and we can see if that might work for you. We then undertake an assessment exercise with the directors and potential mentors and decide who we can support. This takes a few days, and we will inform everyone, both successful and unsuccessful, by Friday the 6th of August. The deadline for the expressions of interest is the 2nd of August. So in those 4 days we'll decide, and that gives everyone enough time to start working on the application, who we are supporting. Once you get to that point, I'll send out the school protocols, which would explain the timeframes for everything that we need. And I'm going to give a bit of an overview now of what those steps then are, just so you have an idea. But this is what we would then send out to the applicants that we know we're going to support. Yeah, so the next slide then, please, Sandrine. Thank you. So, I just want to underline that the application process is collaborative. So it involves you as the applicant, the institute through the director and mentor, and us as the research services team. Everyone needs to work together, and it's important that everyone involved understands the part that they need to play. So the process for drafting the project immediately highlights the collaborative nature of the application. Applicants will work closely with their mentor in order to shape the application and make it as strong as possible. In the research services team, we'll assist with any technical problems on the portal. And also there's some sections in the application form that we have template wording for that we'll provide you with. We'll then undertake an internal peer review of the proposal. In order to do this, we need a high quality draft of the proposal sent to us by the 7th of September. And then the turnaround for that review is 5 working days. So we'll have people lined up to do it. Although the 7th of September is the latest that we could send out for review, if you have a good quality proposal ready before then, please send it as soon as it's ready. And at this point, you'll need to be registered on the portal. So you'll need to choose the University of London as the institution, and we'll provide the PIC number that you need to enter to link us with your application. Sandrine will be named as the main admin contact, although of course the rest of the research services team will continue to support you throughout. Next slide, please, Sandrine. Excuse me. Okay, so the next step is the ethics assessment that we'll do. So I will undertake the initial ethical assessment. So I should be your first point of contact via the research ethics email address that we have. This process really shouldn't be left to the last minute because it can take some time. We asked to allow up to 21 days for the approval. And that's as long as the paperwork we get in the first place is all complete and correct when it's submitted. The paperwork is available on the website that we have here. Obviously, you'll have that link once you're being supported. And the ethics process is linked to a research ethics training module that we now have, which is a mandatory course that everyone has to take before undertaking their ethical assessment. If your research requires it, we'll also need your participant consent and information sheets. And you'll need to complete a data management plan. But this is actually very useful because there's a part within the application form, an ethics section, that the data management plan will really help you complete. Next slide, please. So while we'll undertake a risk assessment, which will be due by the 1st of October, possibly one slide on. Thank you. So this will be completed by the 1st of October at the latest, ahead of the 12th of October deadline. And by this point, we'll need all of the paperwork to be complete and ready for submission. If we notice a few minor edits that need to be made or things that can change, we'll obviously do them at this point, but everything needs to be on the portal and finished by this point. And that the internal approval process needs to happen before the application can be submitted to the funder. That's the process, and at that point we'll submit the application.
Thanks, Jaimie. I shall continue just to highlight the additional support, which is quite technical then, regarding the application per se. So the application does have 2 parts, Part A and Part B. The Part A is administrative, and it's something that tends to be generated through the system, and you would need to enter particular details. And it also, as soon as you link it to the University of London, will pull through some of our details as well. And Part B is the narrative part, and Manoela is going to cover that with you in a minute. But there are sections within Part B where the research services can support the applicant, in particular as regards to organization of research, management and outputs, where they can be held, the eligibility of some activities that you wish to actually undertake, the risk management of your project, the ethics management in particular, where we're asking you to go through the ethics assessment. This is actually a very useful exercise for you to take place, because the process itself, there's one section within the application where the funder is asking you to actually detail all elements of any ethical considerations that you have to take place, that you have to do for your project. And then there's an element of institutional support that also needs to be explained in the application. And this is also where we can provide advice on how to, what the University of London can offer, but also how you can structure, or how we can structure the support for you. We will make sure that the application is coherent and that both Part A and Part B are consistent, and will ensure that the templates have followed the guidance, the number of pages. It's extremely important for the funder, and we don't want any applications to be rejected due to a particular technical issue. So if there are any annexes, we just need to make sure we are here to support you, to make sure that they are there. I shall finish here to just give you again the dates that we have, in terms of if you are interested in coming to the University of London and you wish to send through an expression of interest, then our deadline for submitting those are the 2nd of August. We also will be providing further information with that PowerPoint, and which is highlighted here in the last slide. Thank you.
Thank you so much, both Sandrine and Jaimie, for what has been a really comprehensive overview, and I'm sure very helpful to everyone who's working on their applications. So we have already quite a few questions, but we're first going to move on to hear from CLACS Stipendiary Fellow Manoela Carpenedo, who has been successful in securing a Marie Curie postdoctoral fellowship, and is going to take you through the application process and offer tips towards preparing your applications. So over to you, Manoela.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm just sharing here my screen. Can you see my screen? Yes? Okay, great.
Yes.
So about numbers here, before I start with details on the application. So this year we had around 11,000 people applying for this fellowship. So it's quite competitive. And here we can see that around 3,000 people from social sciences and humanities got the scholarship. So, you know, this is positive for Latin Americanists and thinking about that. So in terms of the success rate, so 14% of people that applied get their fellowship. So it's competitive, but it's possible. So and now I will dive on how we applicants, how we feel and how we should approach the process of this application. Well, first of all, you have to get time for the process. It's a long process because it's a very demanding in terms of connections that you have to have with your host institution, supervisor, and your own ideas. So it involves, as we are saying, and we could see Sandrine and Jaimie, we need support from our host institution as well as from our supervisor. So there is, in the website, they just launched actually this, there is a new guide for applicants. You have all the information that you need there. And I will really advise you, and I will repeat, please do read very carefully this and be very familiar with this manual, because everything that you need in order to write a very solid application is there. So this is going to be your friend for the next two months, I would say, all this guidance. So Sandrine was touching on that. I'm diving on the part B. But part A, it's with the institution. Part B of your application, it's on you in writing your project, as well as the institution helping you with some sections that I will explore. So part B1 is the heart of the core of your project. You have around 10 pages to write. No, that sounds okay. It's long, you know, if you compare with other schemes, but you have many things to distill and to write on that. So it's not, you know, that long. So everything, tables, reference, figures, everything in 10 pages. So you have this minimum size. The font is 11. Please do not cheat or try to with the whole space. So really to stick to the guidelines. Because they are very strict on they not even read. If you have like 11 pages, they will not read your last page. So be careful with that. And the part B is the CV and information about the institution. So let's dive to part B1. So as I was saying, you need time to prepare this application. Before I start my application, I had a very clear project in my mind, So of course, some details were missing, but still, and I was experimenting with other applications before that. But even though I had this clear idea in mind, it took me 1 month just to do the part B1. Because you have to fit everything within their standards, within this manual, these guidelines. So it takes time. So and this goes way beyond the whole kind of scientific achievements or the kind of your specific scientific interest on the project. You have to involve your career development goals. You have to involve the impact and the whole public engagement of your research. So you have to think way beyond the whole kind of scientific of the literature and the gap that I will work on my projects. Way beyond. It's about your career development. It's about the impact of your research in the societal level, and all these things, they have to be very tied together within the core project. So the first part of your application is framed under the excellence frame. So, and weights 50% of, I'm going to talk about the evaluation, but just for you to have an idea, you have 3 parts, this B1. So it's excellent, impact, and implementation. And the excellent will be 50%. So it's a considerable part, part of your application. The first, and then the first dimension of this excellence here, it's about the quality of your project. So the science part. And in here, this part, for us scientists, it has to be impeccable. So very clear design, the research, your research, and how you're going to fit within the research gap that you're going to contribute. And you have to be very clear that your research is going beyond the state of art, and you have to demonstrate with references and your knowledge on the field. One thing that you have to be careful is that this research has to go beyond your PhD. You cannot treat this as, okay, it's a kind of a stretch of what I've done. No, you need the skills, and you have to demonstrate. This is important part of evaluation, how your whole trajectory goes and complements the project that you're proposing. But you have to be careful not just simply extending your PhD here. This is not the project that they want. So how you're going to innovate, not only in terms of science or impact in your field, but also in terms of methodology, how you're going to combine different disciplines. So in my case, I'm a sociologist and anthropologist of religion, and I propose an interface with politics and international relations in my project. So, and here I develop, I will explore and I will develop a new methodology based on this interaction between sociology of religion and politics, all that. This interdisciplinary way here and combining different fields, it's very important. And as Sandrine was saying, you have the interdisciplinary element that they are evaluating, as well as the gender one. I'm going to talk about that in a different slide. So is your project feasible? So it's just like, it has to be coherent and has to be framed in a good time. The time frame has to be right now, in terms of, you cannot promise, all their promises, they have to fit in within 2 or 3 years. The language has to be very clear. So many of the people that are going to assess your work, they are not from your field. So my work was not accessed only by anthropologists of religion. So you had other people from politics, psychology, because the panels are varied. So you have to be, you make sure that the language and the way that you're explaining yourself and your project, it's accessible for other people in different fields. So you have to make a very clear pitch for wider audiences. Of course, that is a humanities and social sciences panel, so at least it's not like science or biology, but yeah, you know, a psychologist or a philosopher had to read very well and understand what I was proposing. So this is an important dimension. The tips for Latin Americanists. Here, it's tricky because this is an European funding, though. And it's important here to be strategic about how you can combine your interests. So my project focuses in Brazil and Angola, so Global South. But when I was working on the project, I put a lot of effort in trying to make this claim and making this frame in which how I could benefit European policies, European foreign policies, EU international agencies, and all that. So how I did this, I went for the whole policy and the policy making in the EU. In the EU Commission, you have many of this. So if you're working with development studies, if you're working with, in my case, international relations, if you're working with environmental issues, you go to these policies, read these policies, and see how your project somehow touches on these very specific norms, or they have goals, European goals. You go to these goals and try to bring this to your project. And please do quote, okay, according this paper, this is how I did and how I could bring the interest of European funding towards my project that was basically basic and benefiting the Global South. So this kind of sensibility on those that are going to read and are going to fund your research is very important here. So, and also I always try to bring this quotes from these policymakers and European larger agencies. It's interesting because it shows that you're not working only in the academic and scientific level, but also just showing how your research it has this interface with the societal impact and society in general. Okay, excellent. So you have, in terms of methodology, it has to be a very clear methodology. In my case, I wrote many details of how the communities that I was thinking about doing ethnographies, the kind of groups of interest that I was proposing to interview. So you have to do some of the research before even proposing it, and you need names. They want details, so that they can see that your project is feasible. So this person, she's thinking about what are the communities she's visiting, what kind of diplomatic circles she is going to disseminate after that. So this is very important. Again, try to combine interdisciplinary methods. For us Latin Americanists that we work with area studies, this is kind of a second nature. But I would also invite, for those that are not Latin Americanists and are listening to this talk, also try to combine, because another important element of this funding is career development. So by showing that you are going to learn a different methodology, you're also ticking the box, okay, yeah, this person is extending her knowledge. It's not just a sociologist or anthropologist of religion. Now she's going through politics to international relations and translating her research in these two different domains. So this is a plus. Okay, the gender dimension, one thing. This is very important in their policy making, as Sandrine was mentioning now. So you cannot avoid that. If your research doesn't touch gender, of course, my research, I included organically in my research question gender. But if you don't see that that gender fit in any place in your research, you have to say why. You cannot simply neglect this dimension from your application. Otherwise, you're going to lose marks from there. So everything that you omit in this application, you are just like you can lose points. Okay. Research management data, but then Jaimie, was saying that he can help with that. This is great. So this is important for you when you're putting together application. Have an idea how you're going to manage your data. There is new policy on that in the European Commission. Just launched new policy on how to deal with research data. you have to read this policy and you have to incorporate this in your application. Again, one of the feedbacks that I had from my application is that my research management data plan was not clear enough. So I lost some points here. You don't need that. So go to the policy, read and incorporate, respond to this policy in your application. Okay, I have to be a bit quicker. So, and here you have the quality of supervision and training. And as Sandrine and Jaimie was saying, they were saying that we need the help from the host institution in this part. And here, mainly the supervisor. You have to show why this is the perfect person for this project. Your supervisor really fits this thing. It doesn't need to be connected with your research area, because especially if you're doing this stretch to a more interdisciplinary approach, my case going to politics, this person can be from a different area from your background, but you have to provide a narrative that makes sense and why you're choosing this person and why this is the right person to supervise you for this project. What kind of trainings are you going to do during your fellowship? What are the skills you're going to learn? Are you going to learn a different methodology? Are you going to learn a different framework? So what kind of seminars this institution is offering you? So you have to, that's why you have to work very close to your own institution, and also do your own research on what kind of offers of seminars, of training this institution is providing. And there's the two-way transfer knowledge between researcher and host. How the host institution will benefit you, how you're just arriving there, I will have a training in management, because as we are managing this whole project, we need that, and this institution is providing this training in management. In my case, this institution will provide me this training in policy making and international relations. So you have to explain that, how you will benefit the institution. So how my expertise in anthropology of religion in Brazil what kind of seminars or workshops I can bring to this institution. So you have to narrate this very clearly. And you have to develop a very cohesive and clear plan that integrates well your needs and those of the institution. That's why you need to work together with your host institution. So quality of your research professional experience and your skills. So why you are the right person to conduct this research, why you have the right skills. You have to be very clear in terms of saying why this project has your essence in it and why you are well equipped to do that. You explain why your professional experience is relevant in the project. In my case, I included a brief description of my trajectory, my academic trajectory, and how I, from my older, my past experience, how I arrived to propose this combination of Brazil and Angola and religion and policymaking project. So this idea of having a narrative, I think that's something that works in terms of when assessors are reading and trying to understand why this person is proposing this and why now. In terms of impact, okay, we have these three. So 50% is the excellence, as I was saying, and 30% of the proposal of how they are going to evaluate is impact. So it's less than excellence, okay, but you cannot just leave this for the last minute. This is a very fierce competition, as we saw in the first slide. So, and here you have to be very strategic about because you have 10 pages, okay? And you have 50% excellence, 30% of impact, and then the 20% of the implementation. So my case, I used 5 pages for excellence, 5.5, and the rest for impact and implementation. So you also have not only the time that you're going to dedicate to each part, but also the length within the pages that you just have 10. No, you have to explain everything in this 10 pages. So be careful not prioritizing, for instance, just excellence and then just leave like 2 pages for implementation and an impact. Okay, so impact, it's very important, and as we saw with Sandrine, it's one of the core goals of this scheme. So again, here you have to think about how your skill development plan. So what kind of skills you're going to obtain during your fellowship? This is a talent development kind of fellowship. It's not only about improving science or improving your the field that you are in, but also how how people can benefit from this fellowship to boost their careers. So and then here you have to propose a very clear impact, the career development plan in your proposal. How, for instance, my case, how these methodologies on political science and in international relations can help me not only in academia, but also outside of academia. Here, I see that many people, academics normally neglect this dimension, but it's very important to include your employability skills after the fellowship, and touching the kind of element of what you can do, not only within academia, but also outside. It's very important. I wouldn't neglect this part. You cannot just simply say, okay, by doing this fellowship, I will be more competitive in the academic market. Why? Because I'm going to work with in this interdisciplinary field, and I can not only apply for social sciences or sociology and anthropology of religion, but also in politics. So you have to explain why, and which kind of markets do you see yourself being placed after the fellowship. Dissemination, implementation, and exploitation plan. So here again, you always have to think in this application, what kind of plans that you have for the time of this fellowship. So how we are going to disseminate this research, okay? And here you have to have, first of all, a solid, cohesive research output plan. So like, what kind of articles, where are you going to publish? So which kind of journals, that top journals is expected? Or are you going to plan an edited volume? No? Do you have any kind of people that are interested in putting together this edited volume? A monograph. So you have to have this very established in this application. But at the same time, you also have to develop a public engagement dissemination plan. So it's not only disseminating within, I'm going to this X and Y academic conference. This is not what they want. They want, where are you going to disseminate for broader audiences? Are you planning a policy briefing? So what you're going to, get back to society, or going to produce that can have impact in society from the research you're doing? Are you going to do a podcast, workshops, webinars with training? In my case, I did 2 different dissemination plans. One dissemination plan on disseminating the research to experts, where I included policymakers and diplomatic circles, as well as the kind of public engagement plan, where just like larger, more kind of podcasts, websites. And so you have to think about these dimensions. Here, for us Latin Americanists, I would include here some elements in which you are engaged, and your public engagement plan offers engagement to the European context, because always remember the funding is European, and to Latin America. So how you're going to how we're going to do this? What kind of actors are going to activate to disseminate your research in these different contexts? So this is an important thing that you have to think if you're working in an area or of interest that is not Europe. It's, in my case, Latin America. Okay, and the kind of contribution, what kind of expected scientific impact from society, economic impact? So what is the contribution to your field? You have to be, very, it has to be very clear to the reader. Okay, yeah. And what kind of educational contribution? Okay, y'all, this through this research, we can see certain relations in different way, and this can change, I don't know, how methodologies and how frameworks in this particular discipline is taught at university level or at school level, and you have to be able to foresee this from your research. So in economic impact, in my case, product and patents, but people that work with this is also important. The society impact. So the kind of, can your research improve policies? Can improve decision making? And here I really emphasize that you should not be vague. Oh, my research can contribute to development of environmental policies. How are you going to propose an environmental policy, a briefing on that? Who are you going to invite to listen to your briefing? You have to explain not just like vague projects or vague kind of ideas that this will impact, but how you're going to promote the dissemination of that. So you have to have this kind of solid and concrete plan in this application. It's not like just a sake of lip service saying, okay, yeah, it will have a societal impact that you don't know how to localize or write or think about. So this is the quality and efficiency of the implementation, 20%. So it's again, do not neglect this part. And this is a tricky one because you are invited to write a Gantt chart that it's basically the narrative, the chronology of your project. And you have to place like milestones. For instance, in my case, I have planned field work in Brazil, field work in Angola, and how from these milestones you can move to deliverables, the kind of article, the policy briefing on Brazil, the policy briefing on Angola. So everything has to be very clearly explained here. And here you have the work packages, management, field work, research. So it has to be very clear the kind of deliverables and the dissemination plan that you have for. So yeah, you touch a bit on this, Jaimie, but we work with the institution with the risk risk management plan, but also we have to think about our own research and how we can mitigate the risks of our research. So in my case, for instance, I was writing during COVID. So how this would impact my fieldwork access or problems that you always have to foresee problems within your research and how you're going to mitigate that. You have to reflect on these things and design again a risk management plan. How we just are going to delay a publication, why? How you're going to mitigate this delay in publication. So yeah, this part it's in combination with the institution. So it's just more about what kind of group, research group are you going to be inserted during this fellowship? Facilities, are you going to have an office, a lab? I don't know, logistics. The part B, and this is I'm almost finishing here. Yeah, the part B, you have the CV. So this doesn't take much time. So the B1 is really the core of thing, but don't leave this for the last kind of week. No, you need a bit more. And the capacity of participating organizations, again, the institution, the hosting institution will help you with that. And additional ethics information. This one I would emphasize for us Latin Americanists, that we need an extra time because in my case, I don't know if you are collecting data abroad in Brazil or in other countries in Latin America, you have a specific dimension as well as in the data management plan on how data collected and ethics issues, because we are not undertaking collecting data in Europe. And if you're doing this in other countries, you have implications. And you have to write about that and explain how you're going to mitigate some ethical and data management problems that this can emerge because of that. So I did this part. I didn't have much time to think about that, but I think that you should leave like 2-3 days at least to deal if you're in this position that you're collecting data from a country which is not from Europe. You need time to think about all the questions and issues on that. Well, I look forward. Oh, okay, yeah, evaluation. Last slide. Amazing. This is a funding that you get the feedback, because many times we don't get any feedback from the projects that we write. Okay, and you have different scoring. So we have the 15, the 20, the 13%. And assessors, they write things like that. So, oh, the project interdisciplinary dimension is clearly demonstrated. So the proposal is well in line with the researcher profile, will give the opportunity to acquire new complementary skills and contribute to development as independent researcher and reinforce employability. So the weakness here, a specific software tool to deploy in order to manage and analyze the research data is not described in the proposal. So everything that you haven't done in, oh, okay, the risk and management, or, oh yeah, the gender, the weaknesses, this is very likely to emerge in your feedback. That's why you have to read very carefully the guide and try to react at least to the questions that they are posing. Well, this is my contribution. Thank you so much. I will stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Manoela, for such a detailed presentation. And it's always very helpful to have the insight of somebody who has been successful, but your tips were excellent. And some people echoed this in the chat.